Hi everyone, my name is Lana Kalashnyk. I'm with Amazon Web Services, not just the entirety of Amazon. Essentially, my job is to grow the community of blockchain providers, whether this is systems integrators or ISVs such as Kaleido or 3 or some of the other leaders in the space, and also to grow our own internal services. So today in this talk, we just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an insight of how we think about the industry and how we differentiate between different use cases for blockchain. So I'm pretty sure majority of you have seen this image. And this kind of differentiates between two people. You're supposed to laugh. It's almost over. We have 1 hour. We can make it through. So majority of us are like Miss Yellen that are kind of looking and don't really understand what's going on with the whole cryptocurrency trade. What does it all mean? And then the back of the class are a bunch of nerds like myself that are just absolutely excited about the promise of decentralization, not only in the financial industries, but also in healthcare and life sciences, agriculture, ed tech, and so on and so forth. And some of us are still trying to hodl, So what do we think about blockchain? So there's obviously been a lot of hype in the industry, and we've talked about it throughout the day, that we're kind of understanding that right now the investments might be going down a little bit. A lot of ways that is correlated with the price of the cryptocurrencies on the market. And a lot of us are trying to figure out, is this a hype cycle, or is this a bubble that's about to burst? So for, let's say, companies in healthcare and life sciences industries, they're trying to understand, is there something else? Is there there in this industry that can help them alleviate some of the extra expenses in settlements and providing more guarantees of security to their customers or patients? And also blockchain logistics. So is this going to truly change supply chains and logistics of the world, or is this just a marketing ploy to secure funding? So it could have been a buzzword, or it could outlive the hype. Well, we believe that it's more than just hype. And if you're looking at the technology is actually winning right now. And the fact that we're seeing this conference and so many others is just showing how many very talented individuals are building products and bringing them to market. I'm not sure if any one of you have been to ETH Denver before or this week. Anybody? I highly encourage you to go and just hang out with builders and kind of get the feel and catch the bug again if you're losing it, and keep building forward. That was one of the more fascinating hackathons that I've ever attended to. But kind of winding back to AWS's point of view on Ledger. So a lot of our customers actually, when we're discussing with them their use cases for using blockchain, we're starting to realize that actually need a ledger database. So they don't really need centralized trust. So there are a lot of use cases, let's say in regulated industries, in which case you do not have multiple parties that are mutually distrusting. And in that case, a normal central database would not cut it actually either. So you'd need a ledger database. So this is a new ledger database type that we've introduced at reInvent last year, and should be going in production pretty soon here. And then there is this separate type of technologies that we're working on, which is actually all around the decentralized governance for transaction processes. So this could be complex supply chains, which are international financial institutions, retail, and so on and so forth. And if you're picking up on this, the answer here is trust. And we are seeing two absolutely differentiated use cases for both of those technologies. Because of this, we're launching Amazon Quantum Ledger Database and Amazon Managed Blockchain. And I will give you a little bit of an overview of the design decisions that we've made as we're building out these solutions, and maybe it's going to spark some creativity on how you can integrate those or influence your own roadmaps and kind of understand how we're thinking about the space. Another thing that I always try to point out whenever I'm talking to builders in this space, whenever you're talking about blockchain, so blockchain is a machine of truth. So you need to have all three components. You cannot separate them out, because if you separate any one of them out, you're not going to come into a conclusive, truthful final state. So you need your business layer, you need your technical and legal. You need all three perspectives when you're building out your protocols. So whenever you're envisioning your new platforms, make sure that your technologists are in the room with you. And this is incredibly important. So when we're talking about the business layer, this is not just business layer as far as tokenization or financial services or so on and so forth. This is your governance model. So this is how you're going to truly understand who your customer and your users are. And also, how do you design your smart contracts? So this will directly be influenced into your machine. Technical, clearly from technical differentiation, we kind of know already what a blockchain is. So we know it's immutable, verifiable, decentralized system that provides a solid state of truth for all of the participants. And legal. I loved hearing all of the talks about SECs. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has friends who have been just terrified of getting subpoenas over the last couple of years. It happens, it's a new space. That's kind of the price we pay for building unstoppable currencies or unstoppable code. But also legal in the way that if you are innovating different industries, what do you store on chain? So legal goes into governance. And also remember, governance means responsibility. So if you're giving yourself those rules to monitor this network, you're going to be held accountable for that at the end of the day. So definitely put some thought into that. And governance onto what kind of data you're storing on chain. This is becoming really important with the rise of privacy regulation that we're seeing, such as GDPR and so on and so forth, and especially in regulated industries, let's say healthcare and life sciences. So if you're truly going by the purest, idealistic view of blockchain, as I think we should strive to, is don't put things on blockchain that make you identifiable. So mostly because it most likely will be deemed as illegal in certain jurisdictions. So now I'm going to go over briefly quantum ledger database, just to kind of dispel some of the misunderstandings of whether this is true blockchain or not. So this is some of the problems that we're seeing with building ledgers with traditional databases. So QLDB is something we've been using internally under the hood for many, many years. This is how we track state of changes for different systems around the globe. It's tested, tried, true. We dog food this, build our own services on it. So if you're trying to build a ledger with traditional databases, you can't do it efficiently. So it's very resource intensive. You have a problem of who's watching the watchers. So some people are just going to fight you to death saying, like, you can just write a log and encrypt it and pass it around. Well, who's encrypted that log? So essentially, we came up with a new type of database that works to those specific areas. And then we're talking about blockchain in particular. Then in this case, you don't really need a true blockchain because you don't need more than, let's say, 1 or 2 nodes. So you don't have the decentralization needs. So QLDB is an immutable, cryptographically verifiable, highly scalable database. So the way it works is that it actually separates state from journal. So this is kind of a cool approach to figure out if you can actually do any kind of accounting or settlement use cases with this. That eventually produces a record of truth. So let's say you have a DMV scenario that has a record being written to a journal and then to the state. So the state is being your database, the journal is the current historical iteration. You add another state of transition, so let's say transferring this asset from Tracy to Ronnie. As you can tell, the state in the database remains the same, but the ledger keeps growing. And then also proof of deletion. So again, whenever I mention about proof of deletion, right to be forgotten, this is kind of where this plays in. But at the same time, you do have a proof of all of the immutable data transformations via digest. So it works very similar to the way blockchains typically work. Obviously, this reduces risk, provides new avenues for audits, and reduces implementation effort if you are looking to build out compliance solutions. Another new service that we've launched is Amazon Managed Blockchain. So this one is very exciting. This is a fully managed blockchain service that supports Fabric and Ethereum frameworks. So the key here is decentralization. So this one is going to be edging closer to this use case of final of public blockchains that we all are striving to. Some of the challenges that we're seeing, and I've heard a lot of you talk about, is just setup is really hard. It's very difficult to scale these systems and very complicated to manage them. let alone the price of implementation. So whenever you're looking to set up a traditional blockchain POC, let's say, a lot of clients are still either really unstable, so you do need to set up a cluster of 2 or 3 of them to form something we call a logical node. Then you have to worry about the uptime of, let's say, your ordering services, which is really cumbersome, extremely error-prone, and also the governance itself of the network. So how do you replicate that efficiently between multiple accounts? So as you can tell, this becomes expensive really, really quickly. So because of that, we create a fully managed service to accelerate some of those decision points. So it does support open source Hyperledger Fabric frameworks in Ethereum to create scalable and reliable solutions. So these are 2 frameworks that will be available out of the box, coming pretty soon here. We've done a lot of modifications actually on Fabric in particular. So as far as ordering service, we've decided that we're going to use our own ordering service to facilitate some of the consensus building, and also figuring out how we can make key management simpler and more efficient. The way it works is pretty simple. So you create a network, add members to it, add nodes, and deploy applications. So it's very simple, straightforward implementation. So what do customers care about implementing on blockchains? Because a lot of networks rely on central authorities, and they don't really work for a lot of use cases that involve multiple parties that are trading, especially in use cases such as trade finance, whenever you're operating against or across countries' borders, which requires proofs of insurance, proofs of sales, so on and so forth. So we are seeing a significant improvement that is quantifiable in those use cases for, let's say, asset transfers, settlements, and efficient escrows. Something that I'm very excited about to cover is our Amazon partner ecosystem. So we've been working pretty tirelessly for quite some time on building out a top-tier partner ecosystem that builds on top of our services, and a lot of times alongside our services. I was very excited to see Consensus and Kaleido here in audience talking about their solutions on how they're building out on top of AWS. And we're also not limited to just the 2 protocols that I've mentioned previously. So we work closely with Intel on Sawtooth, with R3 to provide differentiated solutions for different industries. And when it becomes really rewarding and exciting is whenever you're flying to, let's say, Kansas City, and you're sitting down with farmers, like guys at FarmMobile did, and you're trying to figure out how do you make farmers trust the government again, or how do you let them take control of their data that nobody usually lets them monetize. So it was amazing working with Intel and FarmMobile and actually figuring out how can we create data sets, they actually call them EFRs, and allow farmers to sell these unique pieces of data that essentially is their creative property or intellectual property, and create new revenue models that were not possible without blockchain. Or some work that we've done with Guild 1 and R3 whenever we're actually optimizing oil and gas supply chain and attributions. So very interesting use cases there popping up in some of the even non-traditional verticals that you might not be thinking about. So double spend is not unique. It kind of traverses a lot of different verticals. So very excited about work there. And also Comgo is a very unique use case that we worked with Kaleido on. So this is a trade finance consortium that actually went in production last fall, which we're extremely excited about. Again, we worked with Consensus quite a bit on a few of their solutions, Kaleido being is the main one. We worked with R3 on TradeWinds, which is commoditizes gold, actually produces tokens on top of it, Gemalto for identity, a few other ones. Some of the slides that are not included here is for T-Mobile. We worked with T-Mobile and Intel on launching role-based access systems, which are quite unique. You don't think about T-Mobile using blockchain, but they actually found that using blockchain made their software pleasant to use. And if you're a builder, you know the software is usually just a pain to use. So we worked really, really actively with them on making sure that we can truly leverage this, this new technology to provide secure proof of ownership, let's say, or authority to perform certain operations on code bases, devices, installations, and so on and so forth. Very excited to see that the promise of innovation to bring to healthcare and life sciences. So we worked quite closely with a lot of builders in the space for quite a few years in consortiums in understanding and helping them bring proof of value and bring down the cost of healthcare, let's say in our country, which I think we all will be pretty excited to see. And Guardian, insurance. Insurance is a very fascinating industry as far as the benefits that could be brought through bordereau processes and so on and so forth by using a blockchain to accelerate a lot of them. And post-trade settlements. So post-trade settlements is something that we are seeing as could benefit drastically from DLT and blockchain technologies. Kind of went through this really fast because I don't want to take too much of our time. And I'm going to leave some time for questions. We do another slide that I did not cover here, which actually two that I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about. Number one is open source blockchains, is that we do have amazing customers such as Robinhood and Coinbase that are building out their solutions, scaling them up and down based on demand quite rapidly. If you're thinking about building out an exchange in multiple geos and you're looking at building out data warehouses, it's going to take you a year, which, as we know, the industry is quite cyclical. So we are seeing quite a lot of adoption and success stories building out these highly secure solutions that are using AI and machine learning to create very sophisticated methodologies around securing your assets. So very excited about keep enabling guys in the crypto space and exchanges, and also our startups. So we have dedicated teams that are focused specifically on enabling new and up-and-coming companies to grow on top of us. So whether through projects like Activate or through our summits and our biggest conference of the year called reInvent. So I really urge you to kind of be open-minded and see how you can use any of these programs to help you grow. And I really hope that next year, if I'm invited, I can actually mention somebody from the audience and say like, hey, in 2019, we actually have made this great connection and helped you get to where you want to be in this industry.
Thank you so much for your talk. You mentioned the three partners, that sort of the business, the tech, and the legal.
Yeah.
Amazon being what it is and the size of it, how does your compliance and legal infrastructure kind of really maybe limit what you can do in this space?
Oh, I don't think it does. It
doesn't.
So what I meant by that slide is actually when you're building your platform, kind of understanding the blockchain. Okay, so I'm going to take a little step back and kind of give you a little bit of a background why I brought that into it. Is because when we're truly talking about what blockchain is, so with Bitcoin, we built unstoppable currency. So that brings in legal ramification, business ramification, and technology. So it was all one state machine. With the advent of Ethereum and smart contracting languages, we are now building unstoppable code. So if you're building something unstoppable, you need to be very honest with yourself as to what is the legal ramification of doing that, what business logic absolutely has to be a part of this unstoppable code, and what technology stack should underlie it. And if you are building stoppable code, then you should use a database, essentially. So that was the point of that one.
How many paying customers do you have for both products?
So I'm not a product person, so I'm not sure. I know that we have, so I don't have a slide here on the customers that are referenceable, but the service is going to be in GA in, I think, next month. Or no, not next month. I think it's like Q2, they said. So I'm not
What's NGA?
sure.
NGA?
Oh, GA, general availability. Yeah. But outside of that, I mean, we'll definitely publish case studies and kind of break down on exact use cases. All right, guys, well, I'll be around. Please stop by and chat. Thanks.